Are we supposed to be hearing something?
And let everything else go.
I can hear.
No, I can't.
Breathe in through your nose and breathe out completely through your mouth. Do this again. Fill up, expand with your inhale, and let go. Relax with your exhale. Continue breathing like this, and as you do, perhaps feel your body soften, your muscles let loose, and your mind calm. Simply notice the sensations of your breath. And by paying attention, your breath leads your mind's attention and relaxes you further. Allow your thoughts to come and go, just like the rise and fall of your breath. Simply be here now with your breath for this short pause to relax. Connect with this feeling of calm within you. And when you are ready, open your eyes again. You can take this pause to free yourself from stress anytime you need, as many times as you need. Thank you for practicing with me. Here at the Mindful Movement, we are an oasis where you can come to tap into your inner peace, positive mindset, and the ability for self-healing anytime you need. I hope you have a wonderful day.
Nice.
Well, good evening to everyone. I'm starting off with this mindfulness exercise. We all wish that we were at the beach or at the ocean and able to relax and just calm ourselves and have deep breaths.
Yes.
Great way to start tonight's session. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in and being a part of tonight's session on parental stress and how to address parental stress. My name is Carson, and I have the privilege of serving on the Alameda County Board of Supervisors, representing District 5, which is Albany, Berkeley, Piedmont, Emeryville, and about a third of the city of Oakland, West Oakland, North Oakland, San Antonio, portions of Montclair. And I'm very happy to be a part of tonight's discussion, our town hall, our virtual town hall on addressing parental stress. I want to begin by thanking you for taking the time to be with us, and I'm sure that at the end of our session this evening, you will find that it has been a rewarding investment of your time. Hopefully you'll be calm after it's over and relaxed after it's over and able to implement those kind of stress releasers as you deal with your living in hibernation these days and operating in hibernation. I want to thank Amy Schrago, who is Chief of Staff of our office, for being the principal to put this on the town hall tonight, and our staff here at the Carson office, as well as I also want to thank the Alameda County ITD personnel and the clerk of the board. Their staff helped us to set up this virtual meeting tonight, and I want to say thank you for putting everything together so that we can experience tonight's discussion with some incredible presenters tonight, and I'm going to get to that in just a moment. Well, it's been about 9 weeks now that we've been living and sheltering at home or staying at home and staying in place. And we already know that parenting is already something that is sometimes challenging. It's always rewarding, even through the challenges. But these are not normal circumstances.
Right.
And now parenting is having to deal with COVID-19, this pandemic, and we're having to shelter in place and get to know each other even more intimately and better, parents and children, and maybe picking up on some behaviors and some things that you didn't notice before, and maybe they're picking up on some behaviors and things that they didn't know about.
Yeah, for sure.
You add all of that with the financial instability that we're all experiencing and hearing about daily, especially on the news, and uncertainty about work and turning back, and the general worry about your health and well-being, and not only of yourself and your immediate family, but your extended family and the loved ones in your neighborhood. And all of this is overwhelming. Let's admit to that. All of where we are today is overwhelming. There is nobody who is escaping that.
That's right.
Well, as we continue to shelter in place, it's a good time to check in with you and to talk about stresses and stress factors and how you're feeling as parents and the mental health that it has on you and the impact that it has on you, but also the mental health impact that it has on your children as well. So we're going to hear some advice tonight about coping skills and the resources that are available to assist you as we continue to try to navigate through this pandemic, which is a worldwide pandemic. Not only is it something that we're experiencing right here, but worldwide pandemic. And everybody's trying to figure out not only how to cope and how to deal with the stress, but how to navigate through these very uncertain times. We're very fortunate tonight to have three very knowledgeable presenters from three wonderful resources in our community. After the panelists speak, we'll have questions and answer period. At that time, we'll provide you with instructions about how to ask your questions. And I know our panelists is looking forward to not only their presentation, but the dialogue that will take place with questions and answers. As a lot of times that's where we learn a lot. And we also find out we're not the only ones having those ideas and those questions. We're sharing those with other parents and other individuals who are experiencing similar challenges today. Our first presenter that we'll hear from is Kim San Gabriel, who is a family support coordinator at Family Paths Incorporated. Family Paths Incorporated is a nonprofit organization of mental health professionals and dedicated volunteers to provide several mental health and supportive services to low-income, multi-stressed individuals and families. These services include parenting stress hotline, providing referrals to counseling services, and access to over 900 community resources from a vast database. A foster care parent advice line, CalWorks case management, positive parenting classes, and family yoga, to name only a few. They also provide counseling for children, adolescents, parents, and caregivers, as well as families. Following Kim, we'll hear from Mary Jane Sims, who is a Ph.D. and is a clinical psychologist at UCSF, Benioff Children's Hospital in Oakland. Psychological services at the UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital, Oakland offers psychological evaluations and outpatient therapy services for children in the East Bay and throughout Alameda County, especially those who are have Alameda County Medi-Cal from the ages of 3 to 21. And we know that that's a very important age group to deal with. You know, your first parts of life are those developing parts of our lives. And so it's good that they're focused particularly on that very vulnerable and developing age group of 3 to 21. And finally, we'll hear from Carla Keener, the Director of Programs at First 5 Alameda County, which I had the privilege of serving on their board of directors for 8 years. First 5 Alameda County helps young people grow up healthy and ready to learn during the most important time in their development. We have nearly 2 decades of experience funding innovative programs and advocating for policies that produce better futures for our children. So as you can see, we have 3 very capable individuals who will lead us and inform us over the next hour or so. Kim, can you get us started?
Sure. Thanks for having Family Paths and having me on. And so glad we're doing this because parents and caregivers out there are really struggling. And I think, you know, a lot of our families, while we're all in this together, so to speak, like we're in the ocean together, but we're not all in the same boat. And I've seen that little phrase here and there around, but I think it really speaks to the experience of what we're dealing with right now. In that, yes, we're all experiencing the pandemic and shelter in place and all those stressors, but some families are experiencing them in more difficult ways than others. You know, so if you're in a ocean liner or a yacht experiencing the waves, that's a really different experience than if you're in a dinghy or a rowboat. And I think the families that we're hearing from the most on our helpline are definitely not the ones in the yachts. So, you know, they are struggling. And these are folks that may have been struggling with food insecurity and housing insecurity and job insecurity. I mean, you name it, they were probably already dealing with multiple stressors. And now you overlay, you know, the pandemic and shelter in place on top of that. And I think it's kind of a recipe for high struggle, maybe not disaster, but certainly a lot of struggle. That said, though, I think our parents and our caregivers also have amazingly deep wells of strength that sometimes they don't know they have. I know, you know, for myself, the same. It's like, once you put me in the situation, well, I'm going to figure it out. And I trust that our parents and caregivers are doing that too. And I think that's one of the ways we try and help folks on the phone is when they call in and they're in that moment where they can't figure it out. They're really tired. They're really stressed and everything's just seems like it's happening all at once. Having that voice on the phone sometimes is how you can get grounded. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we're not necessarily going to fix any of the problems. You know, I can't make the pandemic go away. I can't make shelter in place, you know, end. I can't find a job for you, those kinds of things. But I can sit and be with you in that struggle and be that kind of calm voice that helps you as the parent or the caregiver kind of get back into your center and your grounded space. And I think as parents and caregivers, sometimes we don't realize that we need that support and we just keep going, and we're taking care of the kids, we're taking care of our partners, maybe we're taking care of our elders, whether it's in person or from a distance. And the parent, the person, you know, who's kind of in the middle of all that isn't really, you know, taking care of themselves. Mm-hmm. And that self-care thing can also be a little bit of a two-edged sword. And, you know, we don't want to beat ourselves up over the fact that, oh, I wasn't able to do my 5 minutes of breathing. I didn't get to do my 20 minutes of exercise. And I'm really frustrated right now because we have to work with what we've got in the moment. And so I really want to encourage parents and caregivers to take a deep breath. Just breathe and breathe and breathe, because that's one of the best ways to calm the nervous system. Now, deep breathing doesn't work for every person. For some folks, deep breathing is a little bit, you know, activating. But even if you could just stop and notice, like, okay, I'm feeling really frustrated right now. What do I need? What do I need as the parent? I know what my child needs. I may know what my partner needs. I may know what my mother needs, but what do I need right now? Because I can't meet any of those needs if I can't give myself a little something. And I think parents in particular, whether it's moms or dads, we tend to put ourselves last and lose track of what our needs are. And then we get overwhelmed. And when we're overwhelmed, we're not very helpful or useful to anybody. And we get more reactive at that point. So I would really encourage parents to just take a moment for themselves. Any moment at any point in the day. Go into the bathroom and close the door. You know, seriously. I remember having to do that when I had a little kid at home. I had to close the door. And sometimes he was out there outside the door like, mommy, mommy, mommy. And I'm like, just give me a minute. I'm trying to protect you right now. So, you know, step outside the door. Even if you don't have an out, like a front yard or backyard, it's a hallway. It's still like, step out and just give yourself a moment to gather yourself together. Um, and I really want to encourage parents to lower the bar, lower the expectations, like really low, down here somewhere. Because at this point, parents are being asked to parent, to teach, to manage and case manage, and, still do their own jobs if they're working, take care of their own needs if they're not. And it's a lot. It's a really high bar that we're really expecting from our families right now. And again, if you layer on all the other stressors that were probably already there probably wasn't a whole lot left for folks to, stretch to get to that next level that's required now. And so, a lot of parents are calling with frustration around teaching their kids at school and the academics and what's going to happen. And I don't know how to operate this system, and my kids aren't learning, or, it's just goes on. And kids getting really, really overwhelmed and frustrated themselves. And so then parents don't know how to cope with that either, because they are probably feeling overwhelmed and frustrated with the system as well. So we're really encouraging parents to, again, take your expectations down, and your kids are not going to be able to spend, hours at a time doing schoolwork, attending to the Zoom class, whatever. And your child the best.
That's right.
And I would encourage you to use that knowledge. It's like, okay, I know my kid can't sit still for 5 minutes. So, okay, then you're going to attend for 5 minutes, and then we're going to stop and we're going to go do something else. Mm-hmm. And you do something too, because engaging with your child in that way and doing something fun that's not about the schoolwork, that's not about the job, that's not about cooking or whatever, just take a few minutes. It really only takes a few minutes to just move away from the stressor, kind of reconnect, and then you can come back to it. The most important thing that we can offer our children and ourselves is relationship and genuine connection. And so as a parent for a child, that's attending to them, getting on their level, eye level, finding out what they need. And Mary Jayne, I'm sure we'll go into more of this later. I don't mean to stepping out of my lane. But for parents, we also need that. And that's where having somebody to talk to, whether it's your partner, it may not be your partner, because you may be super frustrated with your partner right now and need a break from them too. It may be a friend you can call on the phone, a relative, and it could be the helpline. And that's really what we're there for, is to just provide that space. And I think I really want to give parents permission to take those breaks and not have these expectations up here that you're going to be the best parent, the best teacher, the best. You're not. Nobody is. None of us are operating at our best right now. I barely can concentrate for more than an hour at a time, if that, and then I have to stop and go take a walk, just decompress a little. And I don't have small children in my home. My kid is like 23, so it's a very different experience. Let's see, Mary Jayne, Carla, any other thoughts as I'm, as we're talking about parents and
what's the hours of the hotline that people can call? What's the hours of operation?
The hotline's 24/7. So you can call anytime, day or night, 7 days a week. And generally speaking, we're able to answer, within the first ring or two. If we don't, that just means we're on a call with another parent. So yeah, please call. And there's no obligation to say who you are, to, at most we might ask you what city are you calling from, just to make sure you're in Alameda County. But it's totally free. It's confidential, anonymous, and you can just talk to somebody. And it could be about your child, it could be about you, it could be about your relationship with your partner, whatever is stressing you in that moment, and you just need another grown-up to talk to about it. But be compassionate with yourself. You're going to make mistakes. You're not going to do everything right. This isn't the time to go try that new parenting technique. Probably not a good idea. If your child was right in the middle of like potty training, they're going to be stressed. You're going to be stressed. Maybe we need to just step back from that and just not engage in that right now. I'm not saying don't do it, but give yourself more space and give your child more space, because you're both stressed out, and stressors are going to show up in really different ways for different people. And so for some of us, when we get overwhelmed and stressed, we get more anxious and we kind of go up with our energy, and we get frustrated really easy and snappy and irritated and irritable. And some of us go the opposite direction, and we get really quiet and we get numb, we get lethargic, exhausted, just low motivation. And in either one of those states, it's really hard to function really well. But that may be where you go, and it's okay. Again, be forgiving of yourself and just acknowledge, like, wow, I'm having a really hard time today. I need to take a break. We're not going to do all those things we talked about yesterday. We're going to just sit here and we're going to relax and take a break. Screen time. I know we all are like concerned about our kids with screen time. Again, this is probably not the time to be super over the top with that. You don't want your kids sitting there for 8 hours a day, but it's okay to sit there and let's watch a movie together. Let's watch Sesame Street. Let's watch something, if that helps to calm things down. And when you are in one of those two zones, like you're super hyped up or you're really low, it's hard to attend to your kids because they're going to feel that energy as well, and they're also going to react to it. And so if your child is kind of tantruming or what we call dysregulated, so they're not able to manage whatever the task is, sometimes that makes us feel very similar. And so we can feel that inside our bodies, our heart races, we sweat, whatever those things are for us. And it can be difficult to be with our child in those moments. And sometimes the best thing we can do is separate ourselves. Just like, as long as your child is physically safe, it's okay to walk away. And like I said, literally go into the bathroom and close the door, or go into your bedroom and close the door, whatever space you have, and take a minute, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you need, whatever's safe. Obviously, if you have a little child, you have to be more conscientious about that. But the best thing you can do for your child is for you to get calmed down and grounded, because then you'll be able to manage what's going on for them, and they will then calm down because they are so tuned into what's happening with you. They can feel your energy. So if your energy is up here or it's way down here, they're going to react accordingly. And so trying to manage what's going on for you first, it's that metaphor in the airplane. Put your mask on first and then put your kid's mask on.
Dr. Sims, you work in a place of healing, but a lot of times when people come to a place of healing, especially for children's over at UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital in Oakland, there's a little bit of anxiety. There's a little bit of apprehension. Mm-hmm. Are you experiencing children 3 to 21 that are coming in now? Is it increased? Are you picking up that there's something different happening as a result of this pandemic, or is it a continuation of it, or it's being escalated because the numbers are higher coming in?
So first of all, just let me say thank you, Supervisor Carson. I really appreciate this time and opportunity, and I think the communities need it, and we might even need a part 2 or 3. And in answer to your question, it's a little bit of all of that. And what I want to say that what we're focusing on right now is, because some kids are flourishing during this time, mm-hmm. being home, not having the stress of school or homework, it works for them. Whereas other kids, it doesn't. And so we're focusing here on those who are struggling. Also, I just want to say that regardless of the age, whether they're 3, 15, 21, 10, including adults, we all want to feel safe. So the question is, am I safe? Are the people caring for me safe? And how long is this situation going to last? You know, and so, so we're all wondering that, and especially kids, because they don't have the cognitive abilities that we as adults do. And to answer your question, so we are doing our services through telehealth, just like we're doing now. So it's either video or phone calls. As far as the hospital, what I want to acknowledge when you ask what's the hospital scene, I want to specifically address a certain team around the mental health. And so actually, in some ways, the numbers are lower of kids coming in. First of all, because we get a lot of our referrals through the hospital, is through a school, a teacher, a counselor. And so they may not have access to that right now. Also, because of the virus, many people are afraid to come to the hospital, you know, to get services. And so those that that team is seeing mostly, it's those who, because of the COVID-19, didn't really have access or services. And so they're coming more in crisis. So the crisis might be around suicidal thoughts, you know, and some that have attempted, we've seen ingestion a lot, or I can't say a lot, but this is on the increase. We've seen ingestion, we've seen some hangings. So even though the numbers are lower, in general, it's more intense because of the virus, because of the lack of connection. And for many of our kids, you know, school, after school programs, hanging out with auntie or our cousin or our friends, that was a stress reliever. You know, Kim said something about relationship. Relationship is so important on so many different levels. And right now, many youth don't have access to that, or access to those relationships that they had before the COVID-19. And the one thing I want to say is that even though we might not can go to the park or to the beach or visit each other's homes, a phone call works. You know, it in times like these, and even if it's just 5 minutes, you know, a phone call works. And so I want to stress that. And one thing I want, so did I answer that question?
Yeah, yes, you did. And it's interesting. I mean, on some level, I don't know how the various forms of media, as well as just technology, is doing extra outreach to our communities to say that they're still, that in your case, you're still open for business. You're still available to offer that advice, that counseling, that psychological session that's desperately needed. And hopefully one of the outcomes of tonight's town hall is that people will put that out in the community, so they'll know that these resources, while you may not be able to access them personally, you can still access them. Yes, you did.
That's right. And so, you know, that's, I'm hoping that's an outcome also. And I know the only high school in West Oakland, McClymonds, that, you know, we are still providing services. And with the resources, there will be information for caregivers and parents, aunties, grandmas, whoever, pastors, whoever,
right.
to have access to. But we are definitely here. And, I have to say, as someone who loves being a therapist and working with kids, I am adjusting to doing it through telehealth. And for some kids, it's actually, we have found with some of our children that it's a way that they've been able to open up more.
Oh,
We are finding ways to play, through telehealth. And so I feel like we're all learning. I know some of us are so sick of that statement. We're in this together.
Yes.
And you know what? We are in this together.
Yes.
And so there's a way that we are all learning to adjust, and so one thing I want to say again, regardless of age, that just like the adults, all the kids, most of the kids in some way having an increased stress. Don't be surprised if and this comes out differently at different ages, don't be surprised if you see regression. Maybe a child was potty trained or was doing better about not fighting, and now you're seeing more of that. And so one thing, Kim, I know you said, covered about the parents and, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Care for the parents or care for the kids? Both are so important.
Yes.
And one thing I do want to take a moment to make sure we just touch on a bit is that, yes, many of our families are dealing with so many different stressors. And I want to acknowledge those families who are either monolingual or dealing with immigration and worried about ISIS and what's going to happen if I go to the hospital. And also because of and with Black and brown families and kids, racism and classism just adds a whole nother layer in so many ways. And so I think it's important as we address the various mental health issues, physical issues, that's so important to remember, because if your experience is you cannot trust the doctor, if your experience is, they're just trying to diagnose me or find, just talk about the negative, who's going to want to go? And so that's a whole nother level that many of our families have to deal with. Also, access to resources. My neighbor, I have a little neighbor who came over, and I was asking him about school, and they don't have internet. They don't have a computer, and although some of the schools are able to give that, many of them aren't. And so, yes, we might have these things in place, but access is a real issue, and it's not an even playing field. And so you find that the gap is just widening, or you don't learn that way. I'm the type, you can tell me something 50 times, but I need to do it at least 100 times to get it, or I need someone there, So kids are having to learn, not just kids, me. I've had to learn how to do this telehealth, and so that's just an added stress. We're also seeing, I don't know how much time I have, I wasn't paying attention, I'm sorry. Also with teens, depending on what stress a parent is under, we're seeing that some of our teens are needing to get a job, to try to work. Some are really worried about school and my grades, and do I go to college, or is college even going to be open, or what? It's so much unknown. And so we find that those children who were already struggling or dealing with depression, may even be, or anxiety, that they're dealing with it anymore, even more. And one thing I want to say, and I know Kim said this a lot, like, well, what can we do? What can parents and caregivers do? And self-care is so important. You know, those of us who are supporting and helping youth and kids, we have to find a way to be grounded. And I know sometimes I think I need an hour. Sometimes it is just a walk to the bathroom and back. Sometimes it's just a help me, Jesus, or maybe it's a, you know, like, give me a minute. You know, let me go get some water. And during that, when you walk to that sink to get some water, you are counting to 10, you know? And so that is really important. And just being with the child. I think sometimes as parents, we feel like we have to be able to solve it or fix it, to have an answer. And it's okay to say you don't know, and to reassure. Like, a child may wonder, you know, when is this going to end, or how are we going to get through this? And it's like, you know what, baby, I don't know the exact answer, but this is what I do know. There have been other challenges we've had, and we've gotten through that, you know, and depending on the child's age, you know, so the most important thing is communication and being with them. And you don't want to give them too much information, or information that's way up here. You know, you want to try to have it appropriate. With 0 to 5, you know, the little older ones, you can describe it as, it's like a code, you know, it's similar to a code. Thank you. And, you know, let them know that people are working and figuring it out, and there are ways to prevent it. Be a model. We are washing our hands all the time. You know, we are wiping down surfaces. Sorry, my mouth is dry. And so, you know, and figure out ways to have that connection. If you do have internet access, virtual play dates, you know, talking to grandma, grandpa, or auntie, friends from school. So find a way to have that connection. If you don't have internet, you know, we did a drive, well, we have internet, but we did a drive-by for my nephew's 15th birthday. And I know everyone's seeing that, you know, on TV. And speaking of social media, another thing parents can do is really limit how much news they see or what they hear us, you know, saying, you know, especially the younger ones. I think with the teenagers, say, let's watch this together and have a conversation. Ask them their opinion. Even younger kids, you can say, what do you know about the virus? And then you can fill in those holes and fill in that misinformation.
I have a question. To what extent are your sessions, your therapy sessions, exclusive to just children, since we're talking about children's, UCSF Children's Hospital in Oakland, and how much of it does engage the parent as a part of this?
You know, that's one of the things I love about what I do, is that we can meet with and work with anyone that's important to that child. As long as that child has full scope Medi-Cal, it can be a teacher, it can be an uncle, it could be a friend, a godparent. And so some of our sessions is just with the child, if a child can manage that. Sometimes it's with the caregiver and the child. And then in addition to with just the parents. So I might have a session with the child, and then that same week have a session with the parent or with the caregiver or foster parent. So we have a lot of flexibility around that, and it can be for 10 minutes or an hour. You know, it's no set limit of time, as long as they have the right insurance.
Well, we're going to get into more of a dialogue and questions and answers in a few minutes. But Carla, this is a good way to kind of introduce what First Five is all about and what you've been doing. And I say that because on some level, only because I had the opportunity to be a board member, which was an incredible experience for me to learn and be updated on a regular basis. Learning what being a parent is all about through First Five. And you actually start even before a child is born for parents, both women and men, to kind of understand what being a parent is all about. And some of those things that kind of help build that relationship even through birthing, the birthing process up to 5 or 6 years old. Want to talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on at First Five, and especially at this time to deal with the stress that parents are experiencing in this unknown territory.
Sure. And like my fellow panelists, I want to thank you, Supervisor Carson, Amy, and the rest of the team for this extraordinary invitation and conversation. And I agree, it's an ongoing conversation. And I also want to thank the parents, because the fact that you're on this call tonight shows how much you care about your children and how much you want to be a support to yourself first, to your children and to your family and to communities. I also want, of course, take my hat off to all those folks that we call essential workers. Of course, the healthcare providers, the grocery store folks, the truck drivers and Amazon ride drivers who are on my street every day. But I also want you parents to think of yourself as essential workers in a way. Absolutely. That you are the first and best teacher for your child. And you're right, Supervisor Carson, it starts before birth. So we say 0 to 5 because we take into account that prenatal period. And I think sometimes people think because there's so many priorities that parents are trying to manage, that sometimes we think, well, they're little, they're only 1 or 2, or they're not yet born. This stress is not going to really bother them. I need to take care of the older kids, or I need to take care of my partner, I need to take care of my elderly, parent. But we know that children are imprinted upon by what their parents are feeling and putting out there. So even when you think you're covering it up or you're managing your stress, children are so very impressionable, and they do pick up on the vibe that you have and also that's in the household. So as the first and best teacher and as the person which they're taking their cues from to see if they have that safe container of safety and security, they're looking at and feeling how you're feeling. So they're taking their cues from you. So how we started today with the moment of breathing and meditation, to just taking some time and making sure that you're in a good space when you're engaging with your little ones. At First Five, we know that it takes all of us. Another cliche, it takes a village, but it's true. We're in this together, but we've always been in this together. I think the pandemic has shown us just how much we need each other, and particularly our little ones, in terms of providing a safe community, safe homes, safe families for these little ones to grow and thrive. Because we know that 85% of the brain is developed by age 3 and 90% by age 5. So what we do in this 0 to 5 period to get our children ready to get to school really matters. And can you imagine a little one who's been looking all year forward to going to TK or kindergarten and would have been involved in some kind of transition activities about now, or going to the library, or going to school to have to know how the cafeteria works, or going to the field trip to the elementary school they'd be going to? None of that is happening. So they're going to enter a world where school is going to look very different, and they've not been able to prepare for that. So that's some of the work we're doing with some of our school district partners. We're also working with, we have a strategy called Neighborhoods Ready for School. And one of the neighborhoods is in West Oakland, where we are looking at both parents and community partners to think about what kind of infrastructure, what kind of services, what kind of hubs do we need in the community that cater to families with young children? Because again, we know school readiness starts way before the time they enter the kindergarten door. So what are the activities? What are the resources? What are the links to services that we need to be providing really early on, so that children and families feel secure about that 5-year window where so much happens for the growth and development of children? At First Five, we have in our 21st, going on 22nd year now, we were Prop 10 passed in 1998, the 50-cent cigarette tax, to provide targeted intentional services for young children and their families so that we make sure they have what they need. So by the time they are ready to go to school, we provided the best possible environment for them to do that. I also like that the issue of equity came up because we know that the families a lot of time who need supports and services were already vulnerable. Those children were already, and families might already been having struggles and challenges. This has just shown a brighter light on where we need to be supporting children and families with the supports that they need, be they getting to the pediatrician on time for their well child visits. We have a number of our children who aren't doing that. And so a program like Help Me Grow, which hopefully you've all heard of, which is a system where we link with other partners throughout the county to provide services to help make sure that children's developmental and social emotional health needs are being looked at very, very early on. So we too have a phone line. It's not 24/7, but it's Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5, that's staffed by 4 amazing child development professionals who providers and parents can call into if you're having questions about your child's development. Because again, if they're taking cues from you and they're feeling stress, and like my fellow panelists said, we're all feeling stress, that might mean that they're regressing. Some of the milestones that they'd passed already, they might go back. And if you're worried about that, it's okay. And there's help for folks who can talk you through what that looks like, what it means, and how we connect you to services. We also know that fathers and father figures are really important. So we have had a strategy around fatherhood, just looking at dads and father figures to support them and supporting young children in their development. And it just so happens this Thursday, there is a virtual fathers group Thursday evening called Dad Discussions. So you can, all the dads and father figures out there, if you want to talk to other men and female allies about what dads are doing during this COVID to support young children in their development, there's an opportunity. What you see on the screen now is just a really brief look of some of the supports and resources we've gathered in District 5. We will make this available. I think Supervisor Carson's going to have it on his site. We will put it on the first5alameda.org site. But that navy blue column are things that are happening just this week that you parents can plug into to support yourself and to support your families. And on the right, we have sort of these broad categories of services that as we've gotten calls, much like I think what Kim said, in some ways the call volume is down because we think families are dealing with so many issues, home learning, working at home, trying to keep everybody calm and contained, that the calls though have been more complex and taking longer because families are dealing with multifactorial issues: housing, work, unemployment benefits. Am I going to get evicted if I can't pay my rent?
Right.
My car payment? How do I get my transportation to the doctor's visit? So our staff is very well versed in these issues. We link to providers and services that are part of the First Five family, but also across the county. So it's pretty much a one-stop shop is our Help Me Grow phone line. And that number really quickly, and again, this will be on the sheet, but it's 888-510-1211. 888-510-1211. That's the Help Me Grow phone line. And I think what we're also trying to do, and my colleagues have just said it, and I will emphasize it, is that we're also trying to tell parents to give yourself a break, to try and keep things simple, to also find times of fun and joy. And I know, again, it's hard, it might be counterintuitive to think about that during a pandemic where none of us knows what it's going to look like and what normal is going to be. But there are these precious moments, particularly with the little ones, where they're learning and growing so quickly, to point out those things that they're doing and to name it, which helps their vocabulary and their expression, to talk about, oh my gosh, that song you just said was beautiful, or that's a blue bird out the window, or anything that's a moment of celebration and joy, grab it. Because they, again, are feeding off of you. And it's also will help you kind of calm down. If you're following the lead of your child, of course they're following us, but sometimes following the lead of the child is very helpful as well. I think community is so important. So many of the activities in the blue there are about building community. We have virtual parent cafes that are facilitated conversations by, for, and with other parents. We have the dad discussion group that's happening Thursday, again, by, for, and with dads and allies. There are virtual story times. YouTube is a blessing. I mean, again, if you have internet or Wi-Fi, getting a story. There's so many folks reading stories to children now. So while you're in the bathroom taking a break, you can sit them in front of a screen and have Michelle Obama read to them, or some other. Steph Curry is reading.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think Supervisor Carson has read a story somewhere. So there's all kinds of places where your kids can still be safe and be learning and growing at the same time. And again, to just emphasize, it's okay to seek help. We don't have to go around with the S on our chest and the capes, because none of us are doing this by ourselves. We're all reaching out, trying to get supports, because this is hard. I have 3 young, now they're adult daughters, but I can't imagine if I were to be at home with my 3 girls and having to both work, be on Zoom calls all day, and try and school them in different grade levels with Common Core and everything else here to do. You guys are awesome. So take a minute and applaud yourself that you made it another day. You're on this call right now, and you're doing the very best you can. So take care of yourself. Look out for the little ones, because they're watching us. Take time to have some ritual, some structure as much as you can. Find moments of joy, celebration, and those milestones. Be easy with yourself. Have a little grace. It's okay that we didn't get all the things checked off that day. Move, even if it's going up and down some stairs, keep your body moving, stay hydrated. Everything I'm saying for you works for kids too. And then I think community and reaching out for help. So First 5 is here. We have lots of resources. Again, I'm looking at the screen and you'll have this. And this is just a brief list of things we pulled together, and there are more. So there is help. So please reach out. We are here to help you. If we don't know it, we know how to connect you and how to get you to the place that you need. But you're doing a great job, and the kids are going to remember how you, even if they can't verbalize, because they're little ones, when you're snuggling with them or putting them down, that sense of relaxation and safety, you know it, you feel it, you know how your kids respond when they're in a good space. So just creating those kind of places. And I would be remiss if I didn't plug Talk, Read, Sing. We all know the little birdies and the commercials that you've all seen. Again, you don't have to have even a book. You don't have to have instruments. You don't have to have a great voice. Making up songs, asking your little one, what word are we going to use to make a song today? And you all make up a silly song, or what movements are we going to do? And just talking, narrating what you're doing, narrating your day. Even when their big brothers or sisters might be doing homework, you can have the little one sitting there like, what's Big Brother doing? And what do you think that is? And why are they working so hard? And then speaking about older brothers and sisters, sometimes when they're taking their break or they're frustrated, sometimes letting them read to their younger sib, or letting them be the one that does the talk, read, sing, or letting them be the one that maybe goes outside and look at butterflies with their older brother or sister. So that you're creating family moments, you're creating those moments of joy, you're giving everybody a break, and you're creating a sense of community, and you're making memories out of this really, really hard time. So again, I just want to say thank you. Don't forget these little ones, they're watching us. Even when they can't verbalize, they are watching and taking all this in. So take time to celebrate, to enjoy, to include them in whatever you're doing, because they are marching through this incredible developmental period in their life where their brains are just soaking it all in and growing. And we want to make sure we have some positive, good stuff that we're pouring in there for them as they grow and get ready for the milestones that are ahead of them.
Well, thank you very much, Carla. I want to ask a question. One of your ongoing co-equal partners at First 5 has always been child care daycare providers. And during this time of the pandemic, while people may not be taking their children to child care daycare, do you know what's happening in that community to try to stay connected with parents who need help, or the kind of services that once we start to re-engage and reconnect that can also be linked up by way of First 5?
Thank you so much for that prompt, Supervisor. I appreciate it. We have been working since almost day one with our county partners around supporting our child care partners, because we know how essential childcare is to our community. And there's a link on that, that sheet that we're going to make sure families have. That's a referral form for those folks, again, who are essential workers right now anyway, to get childcare, to be prioritized. But more and more, as things loosen and people are getting back to work, childcare providers are starting to open up. Even this last weekend at the R&Rs, the Resource and Referral Agencies, we had some supply distribution of cleaning supplies and other essentials so that folks could start coming back online. So we do see that we're starting to have more stock that's going to be available. Again, first to essential workers, and then others as folks start getting back to work. But we're also looking at our childcare providers, because so many of them are family childcare, meaning they're doing support out of their home, and it's a family business. And so they've also been hit hard by this COVID pandemic. And so we're working with them to find out what they need and how we can provide safe places for kids to be. But again, think about what it means to be in childcare. It's about touch. It's about being together. It's about well, how you social distance a 2 and a 3-year-old, you know, what that looks like. We're looking at what does being safe and healthy look like in childcare. We're working with public health folks and nurses who are part of the Annual Merit Program, to find out, and CCL and other, you know, regulating jurisdictions, to find out what's the best way we can safely reopen and work with our child care partners to provide good, nurturing, culturally, linguistically competent care for our little ones. And it's a job, but we know that it's important if folks are going to feel good about going back to work and having their children be in good hands. But we so appreciate the child care folks, because a lot of them, some of them, particularly family childcare, are in the risk category. You know, they're older folks who are in their homes with children, and that's their livelihood. So we're trying to look at both sides, from being safe and healthy and all the sanitation devices, but also knowing that for some people, that's their line of work, and we're trying to figure out a way to keep them whole and healthy at the same time. So it's a sensitive balance that we're continuing to work on. But if you need childcare and they're in your essential worker, there is a link to get on that now. And then as childcare opens up, we'll be working with those entities to get the word out to folks.
Well, I want to thank Kim, Sam, Gabriel from Family Paths Incorporated. I also want to say a thank you to Mary Jane Sims with UCSF Benioff Children's Oakland Hospital. And I also want to thank Carla Keener of First Five. I mean, all three great presenters in opening up our thought process around how to de-stress and how to approach stress and how to work our way through stress. And I really want to say thank you very much for opening up our minds and giving us some insight into the areas that you are dedicated to and are very valuable to our community. And so now we're going to take some time and have an exchange here, some questions and answers. And to take us through that, Amy Schrago from our office, my boss here at the office, tells me what to do. Amy's going to give us the information. And again, I also want to thank those from our Alameda County ITD department and our clerk of the board's office, because of we wouldn't be able to do this without that tech support and without the county administrative support. Amy, what do we do?
So thank you all for being here this evening. If you're teleconferencing using a laptop, during this Q&A period, use the button at the bottom of your screen to raise your hand to request to speak. When called to speak, please unmute your microphone and state your name and where you're calling from, and you can share your question or comment. If you're calling in, dial *9 to raise your hand to speak. When you're called to speak, the host will automatically unmute your mic to enable you to speak. If you have raised your hand to speak, but your question has already been answered, or you no longer wish to share a comment, please lower your hand or let the host know. We have a hard stop for the town hall at 7 o'clock tonight and may not be able to get to all the questions that people have. But at the end of the presentation, we will share additional ways for you to share input and questions following the town hall, as well as where you can find a recorded version of the town hall tonight and the resource list. So we'll start taking questions now.
Speaker, please go ahead and state your name. You've been unmuted. Please unmute your mic and state your name. Okay, next speaker, please unmute your mic if you'd like to speak on this item.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Dr. Patricia Nunley, and I'm in a lot of different spaces, one of which is the Association of Black Psychologists, but I'm also a early childhood educator. I'm a faculty member at City College, San Francisco City College. One of the things that I'm curious about is you said that, a couple of you said that now when you do hear, when people do call in with crisis, it seems to be more serious, more complex. Could it be possibly that now that they're self-referring as opposed to the schools referring them, now you have real issues, and before it really wasn't, that maybe it was something related to culture and just not an understanding, because there is literature that says school is a risk factor for African-American children. And so can someone speak to that? Or now you, because basically I'm asking, do you now have real problems? And before it could have been something cultural. And then I'm done. I don't know how to mute myself. I guess you can.
I'll go ahead and mute you. Thank you.
Can I just say a little something about that, and please others jump in. So I guess I don't think there's a yes or no. It's all of that depending on the person's and what's going on. So yes, absolutely, by all means, that for some, school is not a safe place. You know, and so I do hear you saying that. And then I guess I'm struggling with now it's real issues. And maybe I'm too concrete, and I guess I don't understand what real issues are. However, I do think one thing with people self-referring, whereas if it's a parent or a caregiver, that they can speak in a different way to what's going on. They understand in a different way because they are now home with that child. I've had parents say to me, now I see what the teacher meant. You know what I mean? And so I guess I would need more information about now we are seeing real issues. And I think it's also hard to separate how much of the quote unquote real issue has to do with this layer of the pandemic, of, you know, of social isolation. So I just wanted to say that. So I don't know if there's time for you to clarify a little bit, or if someone else wants to address. I just wanted to say what was going through what was my thoughts.
And for me, if I may, Mary Jane, and good evening, Dr. Nunley. When I said it, I think it's because our referrals are coming primarily from pediatricians, but also they're self-referral by parents. And so when I said that the call, even the call volume had gone down, but the calls were longer and more complex, again, if you're thinking through the lens of a population it's predominantly Medi-Cal population that our Help Me Grow program services. So they're already vulnerable and challenged. And what the pandemic might have done was change employment status, change insurance status, or something might have changed that now when they're calling, yes, it might be a developmental or social emotional issue, but now it's also I as the parent might have some issues I'm trying to navigate. In addition to, there might be more pronounced behavioral or social emotional issues. So I think it was real before, but I think now there's, to Mary Jane's point, the level or it's gone to DEFCON 4 maybe because of the level of realness that people are having to deal with.
Yes.
It's complicated. by COVID. So that's what I meant.
Next speaker. Go ahead and unmute your mic. Please state your name and your question.
Thank you. My name is Edward Sims. I'm a local pastor, and so I listen to a lot of the challenges that my congregants have now that their children are home excessively. But my question deals more with, can you speak to grandparents that are housing adult children with teenagers and young adults, and that grandparent does not really have control over the children as the direct parent does? And what advice could you give to grandparents?
That's a tough one. We definitely get a lot of calls from relative caregivers, mostly grandparents, but aunties and uncles as well. And in some situations, it's all the generations living together. So you've got grandma and grandpa, or just grandma often, and the parent, and then the kids, teenagers all the way down to little ones. And it absolutely can get really challenging and stressful, depending really on the relationship between the adults. So if mom and grandma, or dad and grandma are, they don't get along well already, that's going to make parenting and make the dynamics in the home that much more challenging. Go ahead, Mary Jane. Did you want to say something?
And the other thing I want to say is that oftentimes you're right. It's, how are the adults handling it? And I think that's a good time, if possible. First of all, whose home is it? Let's say it's the grandparent home, and then out of respect, you might meet with the grandparent, find out what the concerns are, meet with the parent, find out what the concerns are, and then bring those two together. And one thing I think it's so important to remind the adults, we're all on the same team.
Yes.
This is about the child, or this is about the teen. And so finding ways to help them come together and recognize that. And sometimes it is needing to unpack what's between the parent and the grandparent, and finding a way for them to address some of those concerns, or, can we agree to disagree and put that aside for the sake of the child in this moment. And sometimes it's about tough love, and I say that in quotes around, sometimes you have to make hard decisions. Like, we cannot all live here like this together. And reaching out and finding resources, as limited as they are, but maybe reaching out to a pastor, or there is a family member. I know in some of my experiences, it's actually the grandparent who has legal guardianship. Not all the time. And I think that's so complex, because it is your child, and it is your grandchildren. And oftentimes, I think the grandparent is so trying to preserve that bond or relationship between that parent and child. And sometimes we do things that's really causing more harm than helping. And so it's really having a resource to talk through the different levels and issues that's coming up. But it's a very common situation, and I think, as Kim said, a very difficult situation.
And Pastor, just coming again from the early childhood piece, and maybe I'm romanticizing it, I find in a lot of families that intergenerational relationships can be so nurturing for the little ones, particularly around the lap time, and when the child might be having some hard days, that having a grandparent who could just sit there and rock and read and sing can be really wonderful. But again, it talks about the relationships that existed before
That's right.
COVID, and whether or not it's exacerbated or whether or not people can rally during this really tough time. I think one of the things that I know a lot of people have done, including me when I have an adult child living with me now, is that we have family meetings once a month, and where we talk about what are the rules and where are there areas where it's sticky, and how do we try and resolve it. But again, it takes intentionality and keeping what's important in the center. And hopefully some of the stuff we can delay and talk about later. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but maybe that will be something that could be helpful.
Can I say one thing real quick? And I think it's important to remember that stuff happens. You know, we all make mistakes. We all say stuff in the heat of the moment that maybe we did mean or we didn't mean. And what is so important is, how do you clean it up?
Yeah.
How do you apologize? How do you go back and recognize that, you know what? And that's not just the adult to the adult, but that's even to the child. Like, baby, you know what? I realized when you asked me that, I was so worried about this, or I was so stressed, or I was so mad about this, that, you know, that is what's so important. So I just wanted to say that.
Yes.
Okay, next speaker. Go ahead and mute your mic.
It's Dr. Nunley again. What you asked for more clarification. So basically, we know that disproportionately, Black children, particularly males, are in special ed, et cetera, et cetera. So that suggests to me that maybe that's what's going on. Because remember, people do get paid for referring. So that's what I was referring to.
Okay, thank you. As opposed, I'm sorry. Doctor, are you still there?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay, last call for speakers. There are no more speakers.
If there are no more speakers at this time, we'll move on then.
So I want to see if our panelists have a final word as we kind of wrap up tonight's session. And we can start in reverse order of how we started the session tonight. We'll start with Carla.
Okay, well, again, I just want to say thank you to all of you for giving us this time. I know that you could be doing some of the things that we just advised you to do, but you sat here with us. Remember that First Five is here to support you. We want to hear from you. We want to link you to areas and resources and places that can help you along this journey as you navigate COVID-19. I will send the resources where Amy already has them. They'll be on Supervisor Carson's site. You can always go to first5alameda.org. I gave you the number for Help Me Grow, 888-510-1211, for calls about your child's development, be it health, emotional, social, emotional, or you just need some resources or to talk about somebody. So that's Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5. And there are so many places in our community that have services and supports free of charge for families with young children. So we are here, we are in this together. It's going to take all of us, not just during COVID, but once we get out of this. So let's try and work together now so that we develop muscle, so that we are working and engaging with each other differently on the other side of all this. Thank you for your time.
And next, I'm going to ask that Dr. Mary Jayne Sims from UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital, Oakland.
Sure. A couple of things. When I was talking about families dealing with immigration, we do have its new, it's called the Center for Excellence, and it's for immigrants and child health and well-being. And we will have that information available. The other thing I want to say, one of the things that I try to practice working with the kids and talk to families about one of our models, which is Circle of Security. It talks about how to be with kids regardless of the age. And I just want to quote a couple of things. And it says, almost everything we need to know about being a parent in 25 words or less. Always be bigger, stronger, wiser, and kind. And that's not a physical strength or controlling. That's why the kindness is there. But that as parents, it's our duty to be with that child emotionally. Whenever possible, follow your child's need. So what are they needing in that moment? Because all of our behavior, especially kids who aren't able to articulate, is communicating something with us. I'm scared, I'm worried, I'm confused, I'm happy. And whenever necessary, take charge.
Thank you very much.
Well said, Mary Jane.
Kind of wrap us up tonight is Kim, Sam, Gabriel from Family Pats.
So, wow, yes, thank you everybody for having us on. Thank you parents and caregivers for tuning in, because like Carla was saying, you probably have a bunch of things you could be doing right about now, which it's dinner time. So you're probably like, I need to make dinner. So thank you for hanging out with us. I just want to really emphasize how, as parents, you've got this, and you can do this, and you've got it in you. And if you need a little extra help trying to find that spot that's got it, then call the helpline. The helpline's 24/7, 7 days a week. We have helpline counselors that would love to talk to you and just check in and be a sounding board, to walk you through something, just to give you a space, just to like vent and let it go. We also have a fatherhood group that I didn't think to mention that meets, I think it's Wednesday nights. At the moment it's in Spanish. And so it's for Spanish-speaking dads, and it's called Fatherhood Co-Parenting Beyond Conflict, I believe. It's an amazing group for dads, and we've gotten tons of great feedback from dads attending that. And it's just for you. It's facilitated by one of our male parent ed instructors. So that's another resource for dads in our community. And, you know, my heart just goes out to all the first responders and all the folks that are on the front lines, because some of you are parents also, and your kids are having to deal with that extra layer of stress, as well as you, that maybe you're not able to be home, you're worried about your health, your kids are worried about it, you can't be the one that's present as much as you'd like, and you're tired and you're stressed and you're worried. So I just, you know, we are here for you, and please call the helpline. Call First 5, reach out to Children's Hospital. All these resources are here for you to help you to be the best caregiver and parent that you can be, and to get your needs met. So please give us a call.
Well, again, I want to say thank you very much for not only being extremely good panelists this evening and informative panelists, but the work that you do each and every day. Way before the pandemic hit, you've been providing these much needed services in our community. And I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you so much. This event was recorded and will be posted on my YouTube channel, which you can find by going to Keith Carson, District 5 on YouTube. And we'll also be providing a resource list for our presenter that our presenters gave us that can be found at www.acgov.org//Carson. So hopefully you'll take advantage of this, share this information with some of your friends, your neighbors, other family members who might have missed tonight's community forum. But with that, take this information and share it. And as we go off of this set tonight, keep in mind that you can do the mindfulness exercise to keep yourself centered. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.